One.
A very good afternoon, a warm welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of this really exciting pilot, first ever go at an accessible webinar from Thomas Pocklington Trust. This is so exciting. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you very much indeed for being a part of this hopefully successful trial, and for taking time out of what I guess may well be your lunch break today to come and be part of this time together, where we're going to be exploring accessible technology. So just to introduce you and to introduce Thomas, to introduce you to us, oh my goodness me, let's try that for a third time. To introduce you to us and to introduce us to you, let me tell you, first of all, who we have on here as part of the presentation panel here this afternoon. So my name is Darren Pascal. I am the Technology Information Champion here at Thomas Pocklington Trust. And alongside me on the panel, I have two of my colleagues, Graham and Robert. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Go for it.
Hello, I'm Robert Cummings. I'm Technology Information Intern at Thomas Pocklington Trust.
And I'm Graham Page. Hopefully I'm not muted.
No, excellent. We can hear you loud and clear. Excellent stuff. So, yeah, basically, we are here from Thomas Pocklington Trust, as I say. I've got the presentation that we've put together here running hopefully on this machine of mine. So let's see if I can advance to the next section to hopefully give you a little bit of background, or at least if you can see it. But don't worry, because I'm going to talk through absolutely everything that is on all of these slides as we go through. So we are here from Thomas Pocklington Trust. Who is Thomas Pocklington Trust? Who are we and what do we do? So Thomas Pocklington Trust believes in a society where blind and partially sighted people can participate fully. Our strategy places emphasis on education, employment, and engagement for blind and partially sighted people to be able to live the life that they want to lead. And technology is, of course, a key enabler in all of these areas, which means, I guess that's our way of saying that we recognise that technology can play such a key role in all of these areas, which is kind of why the session today is entitled Technology at Home and at Work, because obviously technology at work, well, I've got to be honest, that's the reason that I'm here talking to you today. Right, let's crack on. So what are we actually going to cover today? We've got very little time and all sorts to try and squeeze in. So today's session, we're going to kind of split it into three parts. The first section is going to be Tech at Home. The next section is going to be Tech at Work, and then we're going to have a Q&A, and I'm going to try as far as possible to rattle on through so that we can fit in as much time as possible as we possibly can for the Q&A. And a big thank you to everyone. In fact, probably about 1 in 3 of you have already submitted some absolutely fantastic questions. So even at this point, we already have a list of at least 30 questions. We are going to do our best to get through as many as possible. I must apologise here and now if we don't manage to get round to yours, but because you've registered, and thank you very much for doing so, we'll be able to reach out to you after this with further links, information and resources which will hopefully be helpful. So we'll do our best, even if we can't get to your question directly later on. We'll do our best to include something useful in the information that you'll receive after this webinar. Right, let's move on to Tech at Home. What are we talking about here? So I guess, although it's not here on the slide, I could say that maybe the most comprehensive place, or certainly we hope the most comprehensive place where you can go to find out information that we know about technology at home that could possibly be of assistance, of use to blind and partially sighted people, is the website that we've put together called Vital Tech. I'll put up a slide right at the end that's got the details of how to access this website, but essentially it's at vitaltech, all one word, .org.uk, vitaltech.org.uk. And at the moment, we have all sorts of information about technology at home. So a lot of what we're covering here is already on there. We don't yet have information about technology explicitly anyway, about technology in a work or education context, and we're working on updating the site with that information as soon as we can. But what are we going to cover here today? As I say, a lot of this information is already there, but being organised. So technology that can assist with things like timekeeping, or finding items, scanning text, or even writing. Staying in touch. Now, I know this is a really popular one today. Group calls. So group calls, how on earth can you utilise technology to keep in touch with friends and family, even more than one person at a time, particularly relevant in these interesting times in which we find ourselves. Reading, audiobooks, ebooks, Braille. What technology is out there that can help with all of those areas? My goodness me, there's loads of it. Right, let's plough on. So I believe, if I've remembered this rightly, we're going to start off with the being organised section. So again, this slide just kind of serves to kind of reinforce everything that I've just been saying up to this point. So timekeeping, finding items, scanning text, and writing. So let's deal with each of those in turn, starting with timekeeping. So this is a pretty big area. We are ambitious, you know. So this could go in all sorts of areas. I think I first came across some kind of watch, and again, we only seem to be looking at watches here, but of course timekeeping could be anything. It could be smart speakers. Yes, we are going to have a little look at that. Clocks, anything that can help you to kind of get a feel for kind of what time it is, I guess. I think I first probably came across a talking watch or a tactile watch, possibly about 25, 30 years ago. They certainly have been around for a while, but it's technology and it's useful. I must admit, though, that probably the best kind of fairly standard tactile watch that I've come across, and again, there are plenty of others out there, is probably the Bradley timepiece, simply because I've managed to get mine to last for several years, which is more than I've managed to get on with any watch previously. And the idea behind the Bradley timepiece, and I guess the reason that it gets a mention here, is that it's actually been designed by a mainstream company. So they've actually done their best to put together a watch that it's possible for anybody to read, and hopefully it looks reasonably aesthetically pleasing as well. But essentially, with just really simple design, with just 2 ball-bearing tracks, you can feel around the face to get an idea of what the hour is and what the minute is. Really straightforward, really simple and effective. Smart speaker. So definitely worth a mention here. I guess smart speakers are probably among the most common things that we mention in the information and guidance available on the Vital Tech website, because they can do so much. And I must admit that even though I wear a watch, I probably spend more time asking my smart speaker, and forgive me for potentially setting off a smart speaker that might be close to your vicinity, but say something like, Alexa, what's the time? Hey Siri, what's the time? Hey Google, what's the time? And they'll tell you. And in some cases, you can actually get them to tell you the time in other time zones as well. Particularly useful if you're trying to set up a call that could potentially have participants from all over the world. Now, there are obviously places where you can get things like talking watches and tactile watches. RNIB, the RNIB shop is an obvious place to look for, and actually I think we probably link to the RNIB shop almost more than any other resource on the Vital Tech website. I've mentioned Apple Watch here because it kind of, it's called a watch. That's what it does. I guess it's probably one of those areas where you would potentially be looking at something like this if a smartwatch of any description, if you kind of wanted to get more out of it than just timekeeping, though, because it's a significant investment, especially over existing watch technology. But as it happens, an Apple Watch is accessible. You can adjust the display settings, and you can get voiceover on there, so you can get it to talk to you, and it can even tell you the time to the nearest second. There's also a haptic time function on there, which may or may not be reliable depending on how you get on with it, but it's nice to have. But yeah, as I say, you probably wouldn't want to get a smartwatch just for the sole reason of being able to stay on top of the time. All sorts of other features there as well. Right. Moving on to finding items. I'm always losing things. I like to think of myself as being a particularly ordered and well-organized individual. I'm forever losing things. And one piece of technology recently that has really helped me enormously is Tile. Now, there are other platforms out there that can help with this, but the idea behind Tile and a lot of these platforms is essentially you get sent a sort of might be a sticker, it might be a key fob, or some kind of little disc that you can put inside or on top of, or attached to a key ring, something like that. And then you can use a mobile app on your phone to ring it. So you can, with Tile, I have one on my house keys, and if I want to know where on earth I've left them when running around like a maniac trying to make some coffee and then realise that, oh my goodness, I've actually got to leave for the bus about 4 or 5 minutes ago. Where are my keys? Well, I can just open up the Tile app on my phone and press the button, and there it is. It starts making a noise at me. It's fantastic. As I say, there are others as well. So that's certainly not the only one. But something really simple there, because you can pick up Tile stickers or key fobs, tracker type items for somewhere between, depending on how many you want to get, somewhere between £20 and £50, I guess, from well, Amazon will do them, but I guess that pretty much any retailer will be able to supply something like that these days. Now, I put here on the slide scene previews with Envision AI and Seeing AI. What on earth is that about? So these are both mobile apps. And again, I guess you're seeing a bit of a theme coming through here, that a lot of what we're talking about is actually applicable with either a smartphone or a smart speaker. And that is definitely a running theme of today's technology. So what have we got in terms of the Envision AI and Seeing AI apps? So the idea is that both of these apps are designed to be able to offer information through a phone's camera that could be useful for a blind or partially sighted person to know. Let's take Seeing AI for an example, not least because it's free and it's backed by Microsoft. So this is an app that you can get at the moment on iPhones. And the idea is that you can use it to just read the text around you, or maybe recognize the notes that you have in your hand. It's got recognition capabilities for several different currencies, and certainly including pounds sterling. And maybe it's a case of wanting to get a description of a photo that's on your phone. It can do its best to do that. Now, again, because we're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, so sometimes to arrive at these conclusions, it's making a guess, a best guess. So it's reasonably accurate, but again, you've got to kind of factor in the point that it's a phone here, a bit of technology that is attempting to interpret based on what it thinks it can see through your phone, what's around. So it's not completely foolproof, but it's certainly better than nothing, especially as the app itself is free. Be My Eyes. This takes the tech element slightly away, because the idea with Be My Eyes that it is just like Seeing AI and Envision AI. It's an app that you would have on your smartphone. Unlike Seeing AI, it's also available on Android as well. And the idea behind Be My Eyes is that actually, instead of sending feed of what's coming through your phone's camera to a bit of technology or an AI algorithm to interpret, it goes straight to a human, a volunteer, somebody who has actually signed up to offer assistance to blind and partially sighted people who are using Be My Eyes. And actually, well, certainly last time I looked, it's probably more than this now, they had over 3 million volunteers signed up around the world to just ready to take calls from blind and partially sighted people who might want to have a bit of a helping hand with, say, what's around me? What is this tin for? Anything like that. All sorts of interesting ideas, and my goodness, they've got plenty on their website as well. Scanning text. This is quite a popular one. Whenever your mail comes through, if you can't read it, can you get technology to help you with that? Certainly you can, and increasingly these days, it's mobile apps that are leading the way here. It used to be that, and there are still dedicated reading machines that you can get for this purpose, but these days a lot of the innovation seems to be coming through on the mobile app side of things, which is why the first thing we've mentioned here on the slide is Voice Dream Scanner, which is still a paid for app, but again, normally with assistive technology in the past, and certainly to some extent still now, but definitely more historically, you would expect to have to pay quite a lot to get access to something like this. Again, assuming you already have a smartphone at your disposal, the Voice Dream Scanner, last time I looked, and again, definitely check the App Store reference here for current pricing, but certainly when I got hold of it, it was £6, which for an app that is extremely accurate and that I rely on quite a lot, it's excellent. It really, really is. It can read text, so I can just line up my phone against, say, an envelope or a bit of post, and generally I will be able to get a good enough idea from it of what it is. What's also really good about Voice Dream Scanner is that it does all of its recognition actually on the device itself. So you don't actually have to compromise your privacy in any way by getting it to scan any information that you might want it to read, because it doesn't get sent anywhere else. Now again, Seeing AI and Envision AI, they are both on here because they can both also recognize text. I think it's worth pointing out that with Seeing AI, it's free. Sure, that's one advantage. Envision AI, it's a small, relatively small monthly subscription for this same functionality. Again, depending on how you're reading this text, it might actually need to be processed by a platform outside of your device. So it's nice to have, but again, with so much in this technology space, there are usually more than one way of more than one approach to looking at these things. So, writing. I guess this is something that is particularly relevant at this sort of time. Maybe some of us might find that there's a bit more time that we might have to kind of reflect on our surroundings or get a bit creative, maybe do a diary, journaling, or put together a to-do list, something like that. Well, this is why we've particularly concentrated on the built-in notes functions that you can actually get on smartphones and tablets. I guess the first one here is the Notes app on Apple iPhones and iPads. I mentioned that here. This is an app that I use all the time, and actually, it's great for simple to-do lists. What's really nice about it, doesn't have to just be Apple Notes, Google Keep can I think do this as well, is that you can put together a note that you can share with somebody else. So for instance, my housemates and we've got a shared note that we can all kind of feed into to keep track of our relative expenses, so that we each know all the time how much we owe each other. Maybe if one of us has gone to go and buy something or whatever, then we can update that list in real time in there. And also, it's really nice if, say, I've gone to a shop Probably not so much at the moment, but maybe I've gone to go and buy something and I've forgotten what it is. Well, there we go. I can check in the Notes app, because maybe I've put the shopping list in there myself. But again, if somebody else also has access to this note, maybe I've gone out to buy something and they have forgotten to tell me before I've left the house what it is they'd like me to pick up for them. Well, they can just update that note and then maybe text me and tell me, hey, check out this note. I've added a note here about the milk, or whatever it might be. Really simple things like that. And what's really nice about Notes and Google Keep is that they are both free as well. So if you already have an account on either of those platforms, whether that's Apple iPhone or iPad for Notes, or Android for Google Keep, and actually I think there might also be an iPhone app for Google Keep as well, you can make use of it. All right, let's see if we can have a look at staying in touch now. And actually, again, a really big topic at the moment, making group calls. What are your options there? So each one of these services that we've listed here, so we've made mention of WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, FaceTime, Google Duo. Again, you might notice there's a kind of a running theme here of all of these services kind of coming from a big tech company somewhere. We could have mentioned Skype as well. Again, that's Microsoft's one. So there's a tech company behind all of these, I guess. In Facebook's case, I guess behind more than one of them. But you can use all of these services now to actually place a call to more than one person at a time. Really good for family catch-ups. Some of them have got, well, they all have limits as to how many people you can have on a group call, or compatibility and all that sort of thing. But what's really good is that they are each pretty accessible. I guess we could return to the Facebook one a little bit later on as well, because one thing that I've been attempting to get up to speed with myself over the last little while is how to use one of their portal devices to kind of make calls to people on my contacts list. And I know that there is a lot of interest around how accessible a device like that is. I guess the jury is maybe slightly out on that one. It does have accessibility built into it, but I think it certainly could be easier to use. So hopefully they're going to continue to work on improving the experience. But yeah, I'm sure we may well revisit that in the Q&A area. So reading. This is a huge area, and I'm really pleased to say that it's an area that has improved exponentially, even in the time that I've been exposed to technology over the past sort of 10, 20 years or so. Absolutely astronomical improvements in all of these areas. So I guess we could look at here audiobooks, ebooks, and Braille, and each one of those on its own probably could do with an hour or maybe more, because they are huge. But let's see what we can do in just a few minutes. Starting with audiobooks, what are your options? Well, actually, what's really nice this year, just a couple of months ago, RNIB, they launched their reading services platform, which is, I guess, the next iteration of their talking book service. It seems only fairly recently that the RNIB's talking book service was made available to online subscribers, and here we are. Reading services is up and running, and you can now download audio versions of thousands of books completely for free. If you're a blind or partially sighted person, it's free, and the registration process is reasonably straightforward. And so if you haven't come across this platform yet, definitely worth checking out. I've put here below the reading services mention on this slide the Dolphin Easy Reader app, which kind of might seem slightly out of context there. Actually, it's an app that Dolphin have created, the company behind such things as Dolphin Guide and Supernova. They have all sorts of technologies based around reading materials, and Easy Reader is a free app that they have released for smartphones. So you can use this to actually get direct access to not only RNIB reading services, but a number of other services as well, such as, funny enough, RNIB's talking newspaper service, the RNIB News Agent, which is a fantastic service. And actually, the experience that you get at the moment for as a user of this RNIB's talking books reading services platform through the Dolphin Easy Reader app is actually pretty good. It's probably all. I think I'd recommend it almost as a starting point. As soon as you've signed up to reading services, it's well worth your time if you have a smartphone looking at the Dolphin Easy Reader app, because it's it just makes it so convenient. You've got everything that you need right where you need it. You can search for books, you can listen to books, just right there. It's so convenient. Of course, there's the fantastic Calibre audio library service as well. They are still operating at the moment. I know it's been hugely challenging for many of us to kind of try and keep going with our respective service delivery in the times of social distancing and remote working and so on. But the Calibre library last time I saw was still very much up and running. So again, if you're a blind or partially sighted person, it's well worth looking at, because while there is overlap with some of the books that you can get there, as opposed to, say, with RNIB's reading services, there are some books that you can only get in one or the other. So why not? It's free. And as for commercial services, well, these days it's just phenomenal what's out there. I've mentioned here the Audible service, for instance, which is now owned by Amazon. You can access hundreds of thousands of audiobooks through there. So if there's a book that you can't get any other way, certainly worth looking at. And what's particularly nice about Audible is that you can use it with a Amazon Echo smart speaker. So you can just say, for instance, Alexa, play my audiobook, or play, and then whatever the book might be, and chances are it will give it a go. And there's also audiobooks available through Google Play and Apple Books as well. So yeah, all sorts of sources now. It used to be a lot harder to find audiobooks, and here we are. We've got several options right here to try. Now, we really are going to plough on a little bit here, because I can see that in my excitement behind books, we are maybe getting a little behind everything that we might want to cover here. So, ebooks in Braille. We've got Kindle. Of course, that's an obvious starting point, not least because the Kindle app is now accessible on smartphones and tablets and on computers. So actually, if you've got a low-cost Braille display at your disposal and you're a Braille user, you can get Braille access to ebooks like never before. And these days, it's pretty much the case that most new books that are published are going to be available in some kind of electronic form as well. And again, I've mentioned here the Apple Books and ebooks also from RNIB reading services. I think this is something that they're hopefully looking to increase the availability of electronic versions of their electronic text versions of their titles. For those in education, there is, of course, the RNIB Bookshare service as well. Definitely worth looking at if you are eligible for it. My goodness me, let's look at the Tech at Work section, which is huge. So huge, I think this is probably an area where we could devote, never mind one webinar, perhaps a whole series of webinars to. But what are we going to try and at least give a very brief flavour of here in the next few minutes? So kind of an introduction to access to work, really quick intro. Computing, what's all that about? How can screen readers, magnifiers, or peripherals help you in a workplace context? Accessible note-taking solutions, that is a huge area as well, and this is, I think, maybe a moment, and I'm sure we'll come back to this, of mentioning some of the excellent webinars that a lot of other companies, in some cases suppliers of these products, have actually been offering recently and seem to be continuing to do so. So it's well worth, if you're in the market for learning more about these sorts of devices, checking out the sorts of support that might be available from those who sell them. And remote working. Well, I'm remote working at the moment, which is probably one reason why I find myself in a situation where, alas, my video feed isn't great. Apologies for that. Turns out that moving to an area that isn't quite so sunlit, it's great for the computer, but not so great for you. Apologies for that. But yes, all sorts of challenges that actually we can, to a greater extent, overcome with accessibility in mind. Right, so without any further ado, access to work, what's all this about? So it's government funding, essentially, for some key areas. So this is where the government will actually pay, in some cases fully, but certainly a large contribution toward the support that you might need as a blind or partially sighted person in the workplace in these areas. Equipment, travel, and support. Now, we're not going to cover travel and support at all. We're just going to look at equipment because this is, again, all about technology at work. So what does that look like? So there are all sorts of things here that could be covered. I guess the real obvious one is software for your computer. At this point, I happen to be a screen reader user making use of JAWS. JAWS is expensive, and so it's additional cost for a piece of specialist technology that enables me to do my job. And the government have paid for me to be able to use JAWS on this work machine. Magnifiers. Well, again, this is a really important area especially for anybody who might need to use magnification technology. We'll kind of list a few examples as to what that might look like. And of course, specialist peripherals, Braille displays. I know there's a lot of interest in this. So, screen reader examples. Again, I've mentioned JAWS for Windows, and I've actually put here in brackets JAWS Premium, because JAWS Premium is a version of JAWS which Sight and Sound in this country sell, which is a version of JAWS for the workplace, so JAWS Professional, but it also includes the next couple of years worth of updates as well. So if you are looking at putting together an access to work claim for a screen reader, it's definitely worth, I would strongly advise you to look at JAWS Premium if JAWS is a piece of software that you think is going to be suitable for your needs over other versions of JAWS, just because it will give you that peace of mind of being able to make use of updates as they come over the next couple of years. Fusion. Now, this is a product which, again, Sight and Sound also sell. It combines the JAWS Job Access with Speech for Windows screen reader with the Zoom Text Magnifier. So pretty popular in a workplace context, because it might be that there are times where a bit of magnification is exactly what you need, and it might be that there are times, maybe with reading a long email or proofing a document, something like that, that actually speech or Braille access is maybe more what you need, and Fusion combines both. NVDA, non-visual desktop access. It's a free screen reader. It's an excellent screen reader. It's very mature now. It's been on the market for well over a decade. It's lightweight. It's really configurable, and I would always, as a user, advise, if possible, that anybody, certainly looking at screen reader access to their work equipment, if at all possible, get more than one solution available, because there are going to be instances. There's just so much change in technology. There are going to be times where you come up against a website or a system or something that will be spoken better by one screen reader than another. And so particularly with NVDA being free, it's well worth looking at. And Supernova, of course, that is still available. Dolphin are making the Supernova software today. They have been doing so for a number of years now. Of course, it combines magnification with speech, or at least there are editions that do that. They cover the whole spectrum, really. There's a Supernova that's just got magnification built into it, and there's also a Supernova that's only got speech into it. But you can combine both elements of magnification and speech as you need to. So if this is something that that you are unfamiliar with, certainly worth looking at, because again, it may well be that in the context of the environment that you're in, that one of these packages is going to suit you better than another. And again, I've put in here built-in speech access simply because these days it's possible to get built-in speech and indeed magnification, but I guess we'll come on to that, access to a lot of devices straight out of the box, like for instance iPhones, iPads, Mac computers, or indeed these days Windows computers. I could have been doing this presentation with Narrator actually, because on Windows 10 Narrator is a really good screen reader. Certainly they have invested, Microsoft have invested an awful lot more in its development fairly recently. Right. Magnification examples. So again, I guess we've already covered these. Zoom Text and Supernova and built-in magnification. You still have built-in magnification inside Windows as well. If you have a Windows device at your disposal, have a look for the accessibility options. Just type access or ease of access or Narrator, Magnifier, anything like that in any Windows search box and see what comes up. Peripherals. Now this could be Braille displays, which is, I guess, why they're at the top here, and really quite a huge area. This I would be lost without my Braille display. I absolutely depend on it, especially when doing something like a presentation like this, for instance. It's just absolutely priceless to be able to, as a Braille reader myself, to be able to read and feel my work right in front of me. It's absolutely invaluable, and the Braille display market has never been more exciting. Not just in a workplace context, actually getting more affordable access to electronic Braille is easier now than ever before, thanks to things such as the Orbit Reader 20 Braille display that is available through RNIB, or indeed Braille Me. Well, at least I think Braille Me is still going. Orbit Reader certainly is, and both of which you can get for somewhere between 450 and 550, 600 pounds, something like that, which, considering that electronic Braille devices used to cost a minimum, probably at least triple that, is an astounding development. Large monitors. This is again, it might seem really simple here, but sometimes it's the really simple adjustments that have the potential to make all the difference in terms of productivity. And so if you have a particular need for magnification, it may well be that a large monitor can actually mean that you have more real estate to be able to keep several apps open at once and have them sufficiently magnified to be able to keep track of them all. Again, electronic magnifiers. So this could be all sorts of things. In fact, you probably have, even if you don't know it, access to an electronic magnifier right now with the device, maybe the device that you're using to be a part of this webinar today, because there is a built-in kind of magnifier stroke CCTV function built into every Apple device that's been sold over the last at least 5 years, maybe more. But yeah, it may well be that you need a bit of assistance to kind of change the contrast of a bit of written text, or have it appear according to your wishes, to your needs. And certainly there is technology that can do that. Some of these machines are standalone, some are small, some are big, some are portable, some of them will plug into computers. There are absolutely loads of them, and I think if this is an area that that you think could be useful to know about before going into an access to work assessment, it's definitely worth getting in touch with a supplier and trying to get your hands on as much of this stuff as possible. Now then, Bluetooth keyboards. Again, I guess I put this under the list of simple adjustments, and it really is simple. It couldn't be more simple than this. We actually, in our team, we've got an iPad that we use for test purposes, just to be able to evaluate apps on a slightly bigger screen. In this period of lockdown, a Bluetooth keyboard has actually meant that I've been able to use this iPad to do some of the work that I would normally use a computer for, things like doing emails or checking websites, interacting with some of our internal work systems. I can do all of that thanks to a Bluetooth keyboard. I hate typing on a touchscreen. It's really nice to have the option to do it. And don't get me wrong, Braille screen input for me is one of the best features that I think Apple have ever put into VoiceOver. But there's nothing quite like for a slightly more traditionalist like me having access to a keyboard. And headsets. Well, again, without this headset, you'd all be hearing my jaws at the moment. So there you go. You get them in all shapes and sizes. Some of them block out more noise than others. Some of them actually, like bone conducting headsets, can enable you to kind of listen to your computer if you need to, alongside the environment around you. So all sorts of things here that don't necessarily need to break the bank, that could potentially make a huge difference to productivity. Okay, accessible note-taking. I don't think we're going to be able to do this justice today, but let's just say that there are all sorts of options, despite already mentioning the mainstream versions of being able to take notes on something like a smartphone or a computer, a tablet. Some of the Braille displays actually, and again, I know that we haven't really mentioned specific examples here, but most Braille displays these days will let you actually, take really basic notes on them as well in some way or other. If you need a little bit more than that, then perhaps a specialist note taker such as the HumanWare Braille Note Touch Plus or HIM's Braille Sense Polaris might be worth considering, particularly in an access to work context. Again, we've kind of just mentioned these more because they're there at this point, but definitely if this is something that you kind of think could be useful to you, then definitely worth getting in touch with the suppliers. In the case of Braille Note Touch, it's HumanWare, and in the case of the Braille Sense Polaris in the UK, it's again Sight and Sound technology. And Braille. Now, this is an interesting device. This basically combines a Braille display with a Windows machine, and this Windows machine is a Windows 10 computer that has JAWS built into it, no screen. And because there's no screen on it, the battery life on it is astounding. And also because it's a Windows machine, you can use it together with something like a Bluetooth keyboard. So there we go. It's amazing what's out there. If you find yourself kind of needing to explore any of these productivity options, as I say, then definitely well worth contacting any of these suppliers and getting your hands on this gear. Now, remote working, we really don't have time to properly cover this, but yeah, it can be accessible. I mean, we have, I guess, with this webinar platform, been testing to see how accessible it can be to use Microsoft Teams. Now, Microsoft Teams, we know, is an accessible platform, certainly more accessible now than at any other point in its development history. And there are also some fantastic videos. Again, I know I'm somewhat biased here as a JAWS user, but there are some excellent training videos available from the Freedom Scientific YouTube channel. So good that they've started doing this on getting up to speed with using JAWS with Teams. But it doesn't have to be Teams. It might be that your company is using Zoom as a means of communicating, or perhaps this is something that you want to look at using yourself in some kind of context. Well, yes, it's accessible. There are accessible options for all of these things. Google Meet is also another one. Again, our internal intelligence around Google Meet is still being built, I think it's fair to say, but they definitely have accessibility information around Google Meet. If you put accessibility into Google and combine it with a Google Meet search term, you get a very specific accessibility article around Google Meet. So yes, all of these systems are to some degree accessible, and depending on what your needs might be, some might be more appropriate than others, but at least there are options. I mean, we've got 3 of them on this slide. It could have been quite a lot more difficult than this, and probably was until fairly recently. Right, here we are. Question time. Finally, we've made it onto the Q&A. Only about 6 minutes behind schedule. As I say, we've already had before the webinar even started 30 questions come in advance. A big thank you to all of you for submitting questions and taking part in the Q&A facility while this webinar has been going on. Even if we can't get around to your question now, we will do our best to address it, even if not directly, hopefully indirectly, with the follow-up resources that we will send to all of you who registered. So I'm just going to have a little look at my list here and pick a couple. Robert and Graham, please do chime in here. In fact, Graham, I think this first one is one that you've been looking at quite extensively. Again, I reckon we could probably have an entire webinar on this. Which kitchen appliances would you recommend for a blind person to be able to use independently? Would you recommend any models, for instance, of gas hobs or electric ovens or anything along those lines? What are your thoughts? Well, I can certainly address the...
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are. Yes, go for it.
Brilliant. Right, sorry, I wasn't sure I was muted. Okay, so I've been looking at this quite a lot recently, because while a lot of models of kitchen ovens and other such equipment are increasingly touch sensitive, i.e. they have touch screens which are very difficult, they are usable through Wi-Fi apps. And there are Siemens, Bosch and Neff actually produce a range of models which are accessible through an app, and I know a few people who've tried it and they've been quite good. So in terms of a particularly technology point of view, there are not only ovens, but there are dishwashers and washing machines and I believe tumble dryers in this range. These are the kind of mid-priced options. I think you're looking at kind of 500 or 600 quid for washers and dryers, for example. There's stacks of other, there's lots of other things which really aren't necessarily very technical, but things like the Breville hot cup, which allows you to control how much water you have in a cup. It's often safer than a kettle. That's another example of accessible things. Smart speakers, again, they're great for recipes. You can ask the smart speaker for example, give me a recipe for chicken curry. And it'll give you the recipe for chicken curry. It'll go through the ingredients one by one to give you a chance to get them ready, and it'll also allow you to, it'll then read the instructions one by one as you go through. No need for touching Braille devices or holding up magnifying glass with dirty hands. Use a smart speaker, so great. And we could certainly discuss other devices, but that's probably enough for now, I'd have thought.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Graham. And just to add to your kind of note on smart speakers, of course, you can also say set a timer with one. So, if you've got, and more than one if needs be. So, if you've got several things on the boil and you need to keep track of those, set timer for 5 minutes, whatever, job done. Okay, so Graham, actually, this next one might also be for you too. is there an official list of products available from or through Access to Work? I guess the answer here really is not as such, but if there's something that you can make a case for, then it might be possible. What do you think?
Yes, I think that is about the answer to the question, really. It's really about what you need to do your job rather than what Access to Work recommends. The main thing to keep in mind is that in general, Access to Work does not offer support for mainstream equipment, so computers, mobile phones. What they will tend to offer assistance for is software that enables this equipment to be accessible. You know, JAWS or Supernova or Zoom Text for a PC, for example. And then, you know, a lot of it is also around support work, which I know we're not really discussing here. But that is another important aspect of Access to Work. And it's really about what you can justify. If you know what you want and you know what equipment you need, then you can basically ask for it and write the justifications yourself. Each thing probably needs to be justified with 3 or 4 pithy sentences explaining what you need it for and why. If you need, if you want, or you don't know what you want, then an assessment can be arranged where a person will come in and go through what you want and what you need. But sometimes your employer will also have limits. Many government departments use specific systems and have specific kinds of technology approved. In brief, then, if you have a job that you're about to start, and as soon as you have a start date, even if it's a provisional one, get straight onto Access to Work, alert them that you're going to start the job, and get the process rolling as soon as you possibly can.
Brilliant. Thank you. So next on our list here is what are some of the programs that you need to know in order to work in customer service roles in organizations? Now, this is a huge one. I guess my take on this would be it probably depends on the organization you're going to work in, because they'll each have their own systems in place. And if at all possible, it's probably a good idea, if you can, to try and get a demo or something before starting. But I guess probably the starting point is you're probably going to need some kind of Office related app, whether that's Google Docs, Sheets, or Word, Excel, Outlook. Good news is that both of those systems are accessible. And in fact, there's been all sorts of I'm fairly sure that Freedom Scientific put out a couple of webinars around using JAWS with Google Docs fairly recently. So, you know, it's definitely an emerging area. Maybe a CRM too. Robert, you've been looking at Salesforce recently, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've been looking into using the Salesforce system, which is a cloud. It's an internet-based cloud management system for that a lot of companies have used to manage well, anything really, from sales invoices and records through to managing sort of HR and employee records and expenses and various other database functions. And they've put a lot of work into making their platform accessible. And I would say it's, for most of the functions, it's certainly usable, and there's very few areas that are inaccessible. And for your average user using, if you're applying for a job at a company that uses Salesforce as their system, then you're pretty well on the way to having an accessible system without needing a lot of configuration changes or any advanced scripts or anything being customized.
Excellent. No, absolutely. It's really good to see that more and more companies are kind of taking accessibility more seriously, because I think that kind of feeds into another question that we've had: what can companies do to make sure that devices are accessible to those with vision impairments? Well, I think from the start, make sure that accessibility is a priority and try and engage with as many of us as possible, whether that's through organisations such as Thomas Pocklington Trust and our networks, or actually trying to form their own kind of user groups or focus groups and so on. That's definitely the way forward. Does the preeminence of Windows software in the workplace conflict with using iPads in education? This is an interesting one. Personally, I don't think it does. Actually, you find, especially with, for instance, I mentioned earlier using the iPad here for doing emails and keeping up to date with some of my workplace related systems here at TPT. Yeah, I don't think there are any conflicts at all. In fact, a lot of these systems are designed now to be used on more than one platform. It's not a case that you need a Windows machine to access Office related software anymore. So I guess whichever one is the most accessible that you have at your disposal is probably the one to go for. That would be my take on that. Anything to add, either of you, on that?
Just to say that, yeah, there's if you're looking at certainly from a education or like an e-learning platform perspective, there's a lot of them now are internet, they're web-based, so you normally can access them through either a web browser on a Windows machine or on an app if you're using, say, an iPad. So they're generally quite accessible. I tend to even find that sometimes with some e-learning platforms that the iPad apps are easier. Sometimes they're a little bit more simplified, so they're a little easier to navigate and use.
Absolutely. Alrighty, a couple I'm just going to briefly do here. What is the most affordable Braille display? Well, affordable in the context of cheap, probably Braille Me or Orbit Reader. In terms of being best for your needs, there are all sorts of options out there, but definitely a starting point, I would say personally, is probably the Orbit Reader because it's there, but there are others as well. Yeah, Graham?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say is that if you need it in a situation where you're recording or where you're at work, probably the Orbit and stuff might not be great because they are a bit on the noisy side. No,
that's true. I mean, it's definitely a consumer-focused device, but if you're looking for something kind of in a workplace context, I mean, what we didn't really say about access to work is that certainly for the technology that we're discussing here, funding isn't really a problem. You know, it will cover the cost of pretty much any commercially available Braille display on the market. So if you're looking at it in a work context, then other things besides price are probably going to be your priority, I would think. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Another really quick one here. This is a nice answer here. Where can I get the best advice on accessibility on iPhones? Simple, applevis.com, applevis.com. We link to them all over the place on the Vital Tech website. They are outstanding. All sorts of information on there. They constantly have guides that they update with the latest information on accessible apps, and a really good community as well. Right. Anything I didn't introduce our fantastic producer of this webinar. Amardeep, our wonderful colleague Amardeep, has been manning things behind the scenes all throughout this, and I believe you've got half an eye on the QA box. Are there any questions through there you'd like to fire at us at this point?
Hi there, Darren. Yes, we've got 8 questions. The first one is, how compatible is the latest version of JAWS with Windows 10?
Very compatible. I've stolen your thunder there, Graham. Sorry.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It's not much more to say, is there really?
No, we're all using Windows 10 here. It's absolutely fine as long as you've got the latest versions. You're pretty good to go.
Okay.
Really quickly. Oh, I'm sorry.
We got the next question. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I find using Dragon frustrating and inaccurate. Are there any other options available?
Well, this is an interesting one. So I guess but before we look at the other options, I would say, how are you using Dragon in the first place? Because if you're using it alongside speech, and then there are obvious conflicts there if you've got a speech recognition software alongside a screen reader, but they can be overcome. So there are things like the JDictate and JSay products that are sold as kind of add-ons to JAWS. They are commercially available through a company called Hartgen Consultancy. So if you're trying to use Dragon with JAWS and finding it a frustrating experience, they could actually make it an awful lot more usable. And similarly, I think Dictation Bridge is still a thing. I hope it is. It's certainly worth looking at, especially for NVDA users, but for anybody really, because it's a free project that also attempts to solve this problem. But again, as for alternatives to Dragon itself, any thoughts?
I mean, obviously you've got the speech recognition that comes with Windows, but that's probably not as reliable as the latest versions of Dragon. But if you want, certainly if you need free speech recognition, you wanted to try it with Dictation Bridge, then that would be a free way of doing it.
We're already running over. I'm really sorry. I think I know we're already a couple of minutes over, but let's finish with one final question. Where do you see assistive technology for visually impaired people evolving over this decade, given advances in AI? My goodness me, isn't it an exciting place to be at the moment? I reckon the mention of such things as Seeing AI and Envision and all of those apps that we've already talked about up until this point, I reckon they give a pretty good direction. Personally, I think we're in a really exciting time where, if it's done right, AI in combination with all of these kind of bits of assistive technology has the potential to totally transform user experience. You only have to look at smart speakers. I mean, I don't need to know how to use a computer to be able to ask my Alexa whatever to set a timer or wake me up in the morning. So,
on the subject of AI, can I just mention one last program, which is a scanning program? I don't know if it was on the display. Forgive me if it was. And that was Voice Stream Scanner.
Ah, yes. No, you've been using this.
Yeah, and it's £6, and it's been recently made available on Android as well. And in my own view, it's as accurate as any of them, probably possibly more accurate, and it's a one-off payment of £6. So Voice Stream Scanner is also well worth searching for. I mean, Seeing AI has definitely got better and more accurate as time's gone on, but for me, Voice Stream Scanner probably just pips it, and it's another useful the Voice Stream Reader, which you can get with it, is they work very well together, and it's another good reading option for reading external documents. So, you know, not from libraries and things, but other things that you might want to read.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Graham. That's you're absolutely. I totally echo everything you say there. It's a fantastic app, and certainly those two apps together are a very compelling combination. Right, I think we're going to have to call a halt there, not least because we've run over. Thank you very much indeed once again for being a part of this first of hopefully many more webinars from Thomas Pocklington Trust, this one focusing around accessible technology in the home and at work. And we'll be in touch with everything that we've mentioned here, notes to find out more. I've just put up a slide that's got our contact details and information about our website. So we've got the Thomas Pocklington Trust website, which is at www.pocklington-trust.org. vital-trust.org.uk. And we've got the Vital Tech website that I've been mentioning throughout this as well, where we attempt to provide impartial guidance around assistive technology in the UK, which you can visit at www.vitaltech.org.uk. Great. Well, from all three of us, myself, Darren Pascal, and Robert Graham, thank you very much, as I say, and we'll be in touch, and hopefully there'll be plenty more after this session as well. Thank you very much for joining us today.